Hi there. My name is Julia, and this is now part 4 of how my family was manipulated by a con artist, and he schemed and abused an older woman at her most vulnerable and fragile. So, if you will recall, my aunt had lost her husband of over 65 years and had been being, I guess, groomed, if you will, conned by a con artist to really make him the only one she needed in her life. So we're now into 2023, and every time I talk with her, and every time I see her, specifically every time I see her in person, she always would write in her calendar, Julia comes to visit on these days. And after she died this last January, I saw she God bless her, she kept every calendar since probably 1959. And I was looking, and she had Julia visits, and the day I would leave and she would say Julia left, within a day or 2 days, Pat would be there. And it's just so interesting to me because every time I would call her or visit with her, I would really ask the questions about Pat because I had this horrible nagging doubt that this guy wasn't any good. And I just found it coincidental, shall we say, that he just happens to show up within 48 hours after I leave. And my own personal opinion is it was to undo any doubts that I would have put into her head. And then looking at her calendars, I see where other family members were there, and he would show up 2 days, 1 day after they would leave. And I really believe, my opinion, that he showed up as part of the con to undo any doubts we may have put into her head about the veracity of who he really was. So he also said he had to be with her because he was so distraught over my sister's death. Here's another coincidence. For someone who is so completely distraught over the death of my sister, would you not think you would reach out to anyone else in my sister's family, not just the ones who were quite wealthy? Does that make sense? Or is it just me? Because I kind of think that's a manipulation. He didn't reach out to her own children, but he certainly didn't have a problem inserting himself into my sister's aunt and uncle that we share, who just so happen to be wealthy. So I wanted to just talk about that. And also, I was continually questioning her. And then in 2024, she was telling me about how all the neighbors just love him. Just love him. So she lived in a community that was specifically for people who were 55 and older. So most of the population, they're older. And the people who live there, quite frankly, they are not destitute. They are not living in poverty in these communities. They're Del Webb communities, and they're beautiful and lovely. And he made it a point to know her neighbors, specifically the ones who just seemed to be having some physical issues, like, I don't know, dying on the table and having to be brought back to life, and then asking the neighbor, I would really like to call you Aunt Jane, for instance. I mean, I know you did just die, and I know you don't know me, but you just remind me so much of an aunt that I had one time. I just really want to call you Aunt Jane. These are your cues. This is how the con artist works. They pull on your heartstrings. They try to give you that sense of value and honesty with them by giving you these nicknames that mean something to you as a person. They try to insinuate themselves as though they are your family when they are not. And it gives someone a false sense of security with these people. And then the other part about this particular con man, Pat, is he doesn't look like a con man to people of this age. So people who are, let's say, 65, 75, 80, they picture a con man looking like an evil guy like you see in the cartoons, and they're wearing that low hat, and they're wearing a black trench coat, and they're sneaking around going, hey, you want to buy a watch? You want to buy a watch? That's not the con people. Con people like that, that's not what they are today. they generally will appear to look like their victims. This guy, Pat, he's of retirement age. He doesn't look like a con artist, but he is. He's been a con artist for a long time, and con artists don't mature out of their evil. They don't mature out of it. They just target a different victim. So, those are some tips to look out for. As far as the con artist doesn't have to look mean, doesn't have to look like a bad guy. They can look just like their victim. It's part of their con. They also are going to try to give those nicknames, whether they call them Grammy or Grandma or Grandpappy or Paw or Aunt so-and-so. It's to give their victim that false sense of security, like they can be trusted. They're going to start asking, hey, can I take you to the doctor? You know, you really shouldn't be driving on your own, Aunt so-and-so. Let me take you to the HEB, and we'll go and get you the lettuce together. I'll drive the 3 hours in Houston traffic and take you down the street to the HEB. These are the things to look for. And when you start putting those things together, do what I did not do. Big regret. Spend the $30. Run a background check. Run a background check. I didn't do it until it was too late. Had I been able to present my aunt with this man's true record in the background check that came out for $30, my husband did it for me, and it was $30. And we're talking, allegedly, charges of assault, charges of theft, another charge of theft, another charge of battery, charge of, intimidating a witness with a weapon, charge after charge after charge, allegedly. Spend the $30 on a background check. Don't just sit and let it happen, because I did, and I shouldn't have. That was part 4, part 5 to come.